Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mary's Little House of Centerville, Illinois. I welcome you along with Peanut, who just jumped up on my lap. He knew we were going to record, and he's ready for the show to make his cameo appearance. I tell people he upstages me. He gets more comments, favorable comments, than I do on YouTube. He's becoming quite a celebrity, but very humble about it. Is very quiet about it and goes to sleep. That's how during my talk goes to sleep, like maybe other people do too. I went to Norway with the feast on the 13th. Excuse me, the 13th of June. The feast of Saint Anthony of Padua. He is a very popular saint. Here you see a large portrait, a picture of St. Anthony of Padua with the infant Jesus. And one of our favorites in the ministry is this one here. It's Cynthia, by Cindy, are the founders of Mother of God Ministries. When we were in Assisi, where St. Francis and St. Clara of Assisi are buried, right in front of their basilica, there was a little gift store going down the hill, a little hole in the wall, and Cindy saw this beautiful statue of St. Anthony holding the baby infant Jesus, the infant Jesus, and she just loved it, and we bought it. It's now in our saints cabinet with all the other images of saints. This is her favorite one. This picture back here is a very traditional picture. You can see the lilies here. He was very pure, a chaste a man, a religious, a priest, a Franciscan, and the lilies are there. And Jesus came to him in his purity and chasteness. He also is pictured with book. He was reading. The person who saw this, he was going by the room. It was a very devout person, and he heard Saint Anthony talking in the room, but he knew nobody was in there. So the door was ajar, and he looked in, and there he was talking, Saint Anthony, to the infant Jesus, who was sitting, and Anthony was studying. He's a doctor of the church. He had a book, and Jesus was sitting on the book or standing on the book. Here we see that he's only in his swaddling clothes there, but that's another traditional way he is imaged with the book, and Jesus is sort of sitting on there caressing his face. And so these are beautiful pictures. I do a lot with religious articles, and I found out that the most popular religious articles, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Our Lady of Grace, the Blessed Mother with her hands out like that, standing on a globe, and the serpent underneath her foot, her heel. That's that one. But the next popular is this one, Saint Anthony of Padua. I was privileged to go to his place where he was born in Lisbon, Portugal. The Portuguese claim it because that's the land of his birth. But when he was Augustinian canon, he had a very nice position to be an Augustinian. But at the church he was serving, 5 Franciscan martyrs came back from Morocco, who were martyred by the Muslims, by the Saracens. And when Saint Anthony saw that, he wanted to become a Franciscan because he wanted to go and be martyred like them. He wanted to give his life for Christ. So he did. He got permission from his Augustinian superiors to become a Franciscan, and he got a new name. He was Ferdinand before, and he's changed his name to Anthony, that we know him by. So Saint Anthony. But he died. He worked mostly in Italy and in Padua, so the Italians claim him too. And in fact, Saint Anthony of Padua is one of the most popular saints for the Italians. My parish was the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary when I grew up. they amalgamated three parishes with two parishes and our parish together, and we named him because there were a lot of Italian people living in that part of the of Kansas City, Missouri. The new parish name is St. Anthony of Padua, and in fact they have a picture in their living room in the rectory, just like this one here, the large one here, large frame, St. Anthony of Padua. But he is very popular among the Italian people, Portuguese people, because he was born in Portugal, in Lisbon. And very popular among many people, almost next to his founder, Saint Francis of Assisi, who is accepted not only by the Catholics but by non-Catholics, the Christians, and also even the environmentalists, Saint Francis of Assisi. By the way, Francis has a lot of statues too. That was the anecdotal. I never counted them, but I know lots of statues, lots of images of St. Anthony of Padua are in the homes and the chapels and in the churches all over the world. So he is very popular. One of the things he's popular for is the St. Anthony's bread. On the Feast of St. Anthony, in many places, they give out bread to the people after Mass. They give out bread. The origin, the way I understand it, is when he died, a woman whose son had died, a little baby, a child had died, went to St. Anthony and prayed to St. Anthony's body. He was deceased already. During life, he brought people back to life. He did great wonder works. He was a wonder worker too, witnessing God's power, backing up his preaching with miracles. But anyway, the woman said, "Saint Anthony, if you bring my son back to life, I promise I will give bread to the poor every year in your honor." And so, on the Feast of St. Anthony, this kept going. They give out St. Anthony's bread. Everyone comes up and gets a loaf of bread. And so this St. Anthony's bread is a beautiful tradition that got caught on. Even in the Franciscans of the Custos in Washington, D.C. have St. Francis holding bread in his hand to give out to the loaves of bread to give out to the poor. So he's known for that too, his love for the poor. But the biggest thing he's known, he was a hammer of heretics. Watch out, heretics. But he was he was strong and everything, but he would confront the heretics because there was a lot of false teaching. Heresies are false teachings and get people all messed up. So he was devoted to teaching the gospel according to the teachings of the Church, of the Catholic Church. In fact, he was so caught up with it that he was always thinking of the true faith, the true Catholic faith, in his mind and heart, and zealous to give it out to the people. And he met a lot of opposition. One time he was in a town where there was a whole bunch of heretics, and he was trying to preach to them, and they were causing a ruckus and everything. They wouldn't listen. So he went out of town to the lake or a river there, and he started preaching to the fish. The people followed him and noticed that the fish were listening, and so we went back to town, and they all started listening, and many were converted from their false teachings, from their heresies, to the true teaching of the Catholic Church. Another time there was a real man who was just causing his preaching. He couldn't hardly preach because he was causing such a ruckus, and Saint Anthony challenged him with this challenge. I think this man had a mule, a donkey, and anyway, they made an agreement, a challenge, that to not feed the donkey for 3 days, and Saint Anthony would come out with the Blessed Sacrament, with Jesus in the host like this, something like this. This is not the Blessed Sacrament; it's only a picture and cardboard. but he would come out with the Blessed Sacrament, Jesus under the sign of bread. But we believe as Catholics that when the priest says the words of consecration, that the whole substance of the bread becomes the substance of Jesus' body and blood, soul and divinity. Anyway, he would come out with this, with Jesus in his hand under the Eucharistic sign of bread, and he would bring the mule in, the heretic, and they would have a nice basket of wheat and food fodder for the mule. So when he came out, the mule came up to the Blessed Sacrament, and with both knees down, adored, past the feeder, the basket of food, and both knees down, adored, and his head against the ground, adored Jesus in the most blessed sacrament. When the heretic, the man who challenged and made such a was so hard on Anthony, saw this, he left his heretical ways and became a most devoted follower of the true faith of the Catholic Church, and many hundreds of his followers who were back of him were convinced of the truth of the Catholic faith. So Saint Anthony, he did a lot of he brought people back to life, like this mother, but he did that posthumously when he died. After he died, and that's where the Saint Anthony's bread comes from. But during life, he would go and heal people, or bring them back to life. Corpses come back to life. Those kind of things. But it was all done not for a circus, done to show the truth of the faith. And God backed them up with these great works of wonders, of curings and healings, and even bringing people back to life. This was something else here. Let's see. One more thing. This is the year of faith, and they say Saint Anthony was just so caught up in the truth of the faith, of the Catholic faith. And it was a critical time in the church when there was all kinds of heretics running around teaching the wrong faith, teaching the false faith, and so like he said, his mind and his heart were set on at every moment on true Catholic teaching, true Catholic faith, true Catholic expression of faith. With this, Pope Benedict Emeritus called, and our present Holy Father Francis calls us to this year of faith, to renew our faith. Well, Saint Anthony was so caught up in the Catholic faith. He is a good example to pray to renew our own faith, and to be very careful and to learn our faith and to explain it to others. And he did it with great gentleness. He called a hammer of heretics. That sounds awful, but the way he would deal with the lies and the false teaching and the abuse of the heretics, he would go deep down within himself and utter the holy name of Mary. That would get him back in that place where he would love the heretic and stay true to the faith and not get off on some axe grinding kind of tirade. But the holy name of Mary studied him and helped him to stay true to the faith and true to the charity, because we always teach and teach the truth, or give the truth in charity. It has to be that way. That's the way Jesus brought. Yes, sometimes we have to correct it very strongly and sternly, but we always do it out of charity. And he would always say, when he was in the middle of the heat of debate and everything, deep down in the holy name of Mary, and that would help him keep his cool and be gentle and yet strong in affirming the Catholic faith. He was so good at it that in 1946, Pope Pius XII made him a doctor of the church. Most of his things were preaching. He didn't do a lot of long works, as far as I know. It was just his preaching, but he does have sermons and things that the church. He's a doctor of church, so his teaching is perennial. It's classic for every age. But his main thing was the purity, the truth, the doctrine of the faith. Of the Catholic faith, and we're living in this year of faith, so Saint Anthony can be one of those patron saints to help us in this time of the year of faith to renew our own faith and to help to deepen the truth of our Catholic faith and to spread it. We're all called to be evangelizers, and we can do it not in arguing and trying to win an argument, forget that, but just in a humble servant way to share. This is what I believe, and I'd like to share it with you. Oh, you believe it that way? Well, let me hear what you have to, and in a human love and solidarity, in a search together for the true faith of our Catholic faith. Little P.S. You know this one, a postscript. St. Anthony is also, and I never figured out why he was, but he is good because he's worked for me and many others. He's the finder of lost articles. Finder of lost articles. There's a little prayer. St. Anthony, help us. Something is lost and can't be found. It's a little prayer people say, but you don't have to remember the prayer. But when you do lose your keys or something, ask St. Anthony. He seems to be the expert in finding things, finder of lost articles. I am so happy to be with you, so grateful that you can come here to be with us and share the goodness of God with us, and tonight the goodness of God giving us this wonderful, pure, good preacher of the Word of God to bring people back to the true Catholic faith. And all these traditions that the Saint Anthony read, the finder of lost articles, all of those things are lovely human things, but especially in this year of faith, to renew our own faith and to share it with everyone we can, with humility, with deep respect and reverence for those with whom we share it. God bless you now. Happy St. Anthony's Day tomorrow.